R. Kelly didn't just fall from grace. He fell into a prison system that, according to his lawyers, is slowly trying to kill him.
These are people who seek to kill Mr. Kelly.
Word is that R. Kelly got attacked in prison again, and the way this whole thing went down, somebody on the inside wants him gone permanently.
So they say that R. Kelly woke up allegedly on June 13th and he felt faint. He was dizzy. He started to see black spots. He got up and he fell.
Let's break this whole situation down for y'all. The hit squad gets exposed. This whole story starts with a dude whose clock was already running out faster than a bodega sandwich, Michael Glenn Stein, some terminally ill cancer patient who was basically the shot caller for the Aryan Brotherhood, had been locked up since '82, building his rep as one of the most dangerous cats in the federal system. Stein had been doing time since 1982 for murder and had a whole history of wilding out, including straight up threatening to assault and kill federal officials back in 2015.
According to documents that R. Kelly's legal team just filed, they are alleging that there is a man, last name Stein, who is a gang leader, a big gang leader, and that he has provided a sworn statement to them that prison officials offered him his freedom to spend his last days free if he would allegedly kill R. Kelly.
But back in February 2023, while this fool was locked up at some Supermax joint in Colorado, Stein claims some real unprecedented stuff went down. According to his sworn statement from May 19th, 2025, he got approached by this BOP official, Rayshea Childress, who had already been putting him up to ordering beatings and straight murders on other inmates. This wasn't their first rodeo. Stein was claiming that over his 13 years bouncing around different federal spots, he'd been putting in work for the BOP in exchange for perks like no cell shakedowns and the green light to move product.
Well, there was an inmate that came forward before, and that stated that he was hired to kill R. Kelly. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah. I never believed that stuff.
The February 2023 meetup was different though. Childress rolled up unannounced with Warden Gutierrez and Associate Warden Stangl, no guards around, which was mad suspicious and basically screaming that this was some serious business. Knowing Stein was basically already dead man walking with his terminal diagnosis, Childress came through with what you could only call a deal straight from hell. The proposition was simple but wild. Stein was going to get transferred to FCI Butner in North Carolina where R. Kelly was doing his bid, and his job was to straight up murk the fallen R&B king. In return, Stein would catch the charge for the body, but wouldn't get convicted because the evidence would get accidentally lost by officials.
Now, the way that this man says that this was supposed to go down is that he was supposed to kill R. Kelly, allegedly, and then he would get charged for it, and then he alleges that prison officials were going to fumble the evidence and ultimately bury the case. They would then allegedly transfer him to another location where he would be allowed to escape and stay free.
It's just him. It's a few people that when they got these long cases, suddenly they all got plots to murder them and they all want to get out forever.
The reason, according to Stein's paperwork, was straight connected to Kelly's legal moves. Childress was calling Kelly a rapist who had victimized little white girls and somebody the Aryan Brotherhood would want gone. But more importantly, Childress was saying that Kelly's high-priced lawyers were going to expose some damaging information that would hurt high-ranking BOP officers and higher-up DOJ people, basically painting Kelly as a direct threat to the Bureau of Prisons.
So R. Kelly's team is saying that all this is happening because they've been investigating whether R. Kelly's rights were violated throughout the process of his trials, and that they're alleging they recovered some information that they were, and that this information was going to come out. So this is a response allegedly to that.
This exposure supposedly involved crimes that went down during Kelly's investigations, including illegal wiretapping of attorney-client conversations and straight obstruction of justice. According to Kelly's legal squad, these intercepted materials got shared with prosecutors to pressure witnesses, including ex-girlfriend Azriel Clary, to testify against him, leading to his conviction.
These two witnesses, according to these documents, and according to R. Kelly's legal team, were flipped on R. Kelly based on this in-house informant. This in-house informant by the government allegedly went to Azriel Clary, went to LaShonda, showed Azriel Clary some communications that R. Kelly, emails, phone calls with another woman outside of Azriel, because y'all know she was dating R. Kelly.
Yeah.
And they allege that because of the communications that were shown, he then influenced her to be the government's key witness.
It's just him. It's a few people that when they got these long cases, suddenly they all got plots to murder them and they all want to get out forever.
Stein, who admits to having blood on his hands from way back, initially was down with the plan. The transfer happened mad quick. Within 2 weeks, he got got moved from Arizona to FCI Butner on October 17, 2023, first getting placed in the medical unit until March 2025, when he got moved to Kelly's block. Soon as he touched down in Kelly's unit, some suit reminded him, "You need to handle what you came here for." For weeks, Stein was basically stalking Kelly, following him around the spot and plotting the execution. The setup was perfect. Housed on the same block, Stein had unlimited access to Kelly's daily routine, his weak spots, and the perfect opportunities to make his move. But as time went on, something unexpected started happening in this hardened killer's mind. As a dying man looking back on his violent past, Steiny experienced what he called a change of heart, deciding that killing Kelly to hide misconduct by BOP officers and government officials is something that should not happen. Instead of carrying out the hit on April 11, 2025, he made a move that would flip everything upside down. Stein walked up to Kelly directly and put him on game. "I told him the real. I told him that I had been sent to kill him. I told him how and by who, and I told him his life was absolutely in danger." The revelation must have been terrifying for Kelly, finding out that the dude who had been watching his every move for weeks was actually there to end his life. But Stein switching sides created a whole new problem for the alleged conspirators. Now there were two people who knew about the plot, the target and the hitman who refused to complete his mission. Stein stressed that time was of the essence and offered to take a lie detector test, testify in court, and name witnesses to back up his history of BOP-directed violence.
He says he will take a lie detector test, and he will testify if he has to.
He was basically trying to frame his decision as redemption, choosing to expose decades of BOP corruption instead of committing another murder. Lieutenant Teague supposedly kept hitting him up multiple times to pressure Stein to finish the job, but the dying inmate wasn't budging. This defiance was about to put both men in even more danger. The plot got even crazier on June 6, 2025, when Kelly's legal team found out that a second Aryan Brotherhood member at FCI Butner had been approached by BOP official Lieutenant Teague to execute both Kelly and Stein. The new recruit was David Keith Harris, another AB member who, like Stein, was expected to handle the hits without question. Harris's statement says that Teague discussed specific methods for the executions, including poison being mixed into the food at the chow hall and in the commissary as a means of achieving these executions. This approach was chosen because it was clean. Poison could look like health problems, like Kelly's existing blood clots, or be explained as accidental overdose. Including commissary food in the plot was particularly cold, as it would make it nearly impossible for Kelly to avoid the threat by just refusing chow hall meals. Like Stein before him, Harris said hell no to carrying out the murders and told Kelly's lawyers about the solicitation. News reports and social media posts from Kelly supporters put these details on blast, naming Harris and emphasizing the poisoning risk. The plot expanding to include Stein suggested this was now a cleanup operation, eliminating both the original target and the witness who could expose the whole conspiracy. The timing of this second approach was crucial. It came just days before Kelly's legal team would drop their explosive emergency motion seeking his release from prison. On June 10th, 2025, Kelly's attorney, Bo B. Brindley, filed the motion in federal court in Chicago, requesting Kelly's immediate release to home detention based on these assassination allegations. The motion included sworn statements from both Stein and Harris, who offered to testify and take polygraph tests to prove their claims. The filing accused 3 high-ranking BOP officials, including a warden, an assistant warden, and another senior official, of orchestrating the plot, though no names got dropped publicly, probably due to ongoing litigation and privacy concerns. The motion argued that Kelly's continued imprisonment was straight cruel and unusual punishment under the 8th Amendment, given the clear and present danger to his life. BOP records confirmed Stein's transfer from Arizona to North Carolina, giving credibility to at least part of his story, though the agency wouldn't comment, citing privacy and security concerns. Prosecutors from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Chicago came back swinging, dismissing the plot as a stunning but baseless fabrication, noting Stein's criminal history made his credibility questionable. They called the allegations fanciful, fantastic, and a deeply unserious conspiracy theory designed to manipulate the court.
I don't believe that these charges are true. I mean, I don't believe these women are being truthful. I don't.
But the wildest development was still coming. Within just 2 days of the motion getting filed and becoming public knowledge, the alleged conspiracy would take an even more sinister turn, as Kelly found himself fighting for his life in a way that nobody could have predicted. The poisoning attempt and the cover-up. The morning of June 13, 2025, started regular for R. Kelly in his solitary cell at FCI Butner. He had been placed in the hole following the filing of his explosive emergency motion just 3 days earlier, officially for his protection, but according to his legal squad, as payback for exposing the alleged murder conspiracy. What went down next would either validate the most serious allegations ever made against the U.S. Bureau of Prisons or represent one of the most elaborate legal strategies ever attempted by a desperate convicted felon. The sequence of events, as detailed in court paperwork, reads like some medical thriller. Kelly woke up feeling lightheaded, dizzy, and seeing black spots. He tried to get up but collapsed, crawling to his cell door before losing consciousness completely. Prison medical staff, unable to treat his condition on site, made the call to rush him by ambulance to Duke University Hospital in Durham, North Carolina.
So they say that R. Kelly woke up allegedly on June 13th and he felt faint. He was dizzy. He started to see black spots. He got up and he fell. He crawled to the door of the cell and he lost consciousness then. At that point, he was placed on a gurney.
But according to Kelly's legal team, this wasn't no medical emergency. This was a straight assassination attempt. They alleged that prison staff had deliberately given Kelly an excessive dose of his anxiety and sleep medications, leading to his collapse and near-death experience. The timing, just days after the murder plot allegations went public, wasn't no coincidence in their view. His attorney, Bo Brindley, claimed that while in the hole, Kelly was given his usual meds for anxiety and sleep, but was told by prison staff to take an additional dose provided by them. The next morning brought the terrifying symptoms that would land him in the hospital fighting for his life.
He was taken by ambulance to a nearby hospital because they tried to take him to the hospital inside of or associated with the facility that he's in, but they couldn't help him.
At Duke University Hospital, the medical situation became even more alarming. Hospital tests allegedly revealed an overdose of blood pressure and anxiety medications in life-threatening amounts, along with blood clots in both legs and lungs. Conditions Kelly's team said came from BOP taking him off blood thinners despite his medical history. The discovery of blood clots was particularly significant, as these conditions can straight kill you if left untreated. Doctors recommended a 7-day hospital stay and surgery for the clots, but according to Kelly's legal team, this medical recommendation would be ignored in favor of what they characterized as a cover-up. BOP officers allegedly entered Kelly's room and removed him at gunpoint against medical advice, bringing him back to solitary confinement.
His team alleges that it was overheard someone in the ambulance from the hospital say this is going to open a whole new can of worms.
The alleged coldness of this decision cannot be understated. Blood clots in the lungs, known as pulmonary embolisms, are among the most dangerous medical situations a person can face. They can cause sudden death without warning, and the medical standard requires immediate treatment and extended monitoring. Brindley claimed this put Kelly's life in jeopardy, as untreated clots could be fatal. The legal team's response was swift and comprehensive. On June 16th, 17, Kelly's team updated their motion, explicitly calling the overdose intentional and part of the ongoing murder plot. Brindley stated they gave him an amount of medicine that could have killed him and connected it directly to the timing, just days after the initial plot allegation.
So according to R. Kelly's legal team in the first filing, and they reiterated in this one, that whole plot to uncover the fact that there were things that were done wrong when it came to, remember I talked about like the flipping of the witnesses and all these things that they're alleging happened. Basically they're saying the government and the prison officials have been covering up the fact that they did whatever they needed to do to convict R. Kelly allegedly.
The allegations went beyond simple medical malpractice. Kelly's team claimed that the entire sequence was captured on prison surveillance cameras, providing what they argued was undeniable proof of their claims. They stated that prison cameras would show Kelly arriving in solitary confinement, showing his usual medications to guards as required, and then receiving the additional medication from staff. Similarly, they argued that hospital records would back up the overdose findings and the premature removal against medical advice. The desperation in Kelly's legal team became evident as they took the unprecedented step of appealing directly to then-President Donald Trump. Brindley requested a presidential pardon, claiming Trump was the only person who can save Kelly's life due to the court's slow pace. This Hail Mary attempt highlighted their belief that traditional legal channels weren't sufficient to protect their client from what they characterized as a systematic attempt on his life.
We did ask the Bureau of Prisons about the allegations. They said they do not comment on pending litigation.
The government's response was characteristically dismissive, but telling in its timing and tone. Prosecutors, led by Assistant U.S. Attorney Jason Julian, filed a response on June 16th, dismissing the claims as a fanciful conspiracy and deeply unserious, arguing they mocked Kelly's victims and that the court lacked jurisdiction to alter his sentence. They noted Kelly's history as a prolific child molester and warned that granting release could set a precedent for every convicted murderer and terrorist. The judicial system's response was equally swift and decisive. On June 20th, U.S. District Judge Martha M. Pacol denied the motion, ruling she lacked authority to grant furlough or home detention, even in extraordinary circumstances, and noted a lack of evidence supporting Kelly's claims. The denial came without a hearing, suggesting the court found the allegations insufficiently credible to warrant further investigation. But the story doesn't end with the court's denial. The broader implications of these allegations, whether true or fabricated, reveal disturbing truths about the American prison system and the vulnerabilities of high-profile inmates convicted of crimes against children. The fact that such detailed and specific allegations could be made, complete with named officials, documented transfers, and sworn declarations from multiple inmates, speaks to either an unprecedented level of corruption or an equally unprecedented level of desperation and fabrication.
Oh, you don't believe that stuff?
No, I
Okay.
don't believe anything.
I mean, there's some documentation that,
You don't believe the man, huh?
No, I don't believe.
The public reaction, as captured in social media discussions and news coverage, was mixed but largely skeptical. Many viewed the allegations as a transparent attempt by Kelly's legal team to secure his release through sensational claims that couldn't be easily disproven. Others pointed to the documented history of violence against offenders in prison as evidence that the threats, while perhaps not orchestrated by officials, were certainly real.
It's just him. It's a few people that when they got these long cases, suddenly they all got plots to murder them and they all want to get out forever.
The prison code and street justice. To really understand the threats facing R. Kelly behind bars and whether these wild allegations hold any water, we gotta dive deep into the brutal hierarchy that exists within America's prison system. It's a world where even among convicted criminals, certain lines can't be crossed without facing deadly consequences. At the very bottom of this food chain sit those convicted of crimes against kids, and R. Kelly's convictions put him right in the crosshairs of what inmates call prison justice. The reality of these threats got real violent long before the alleged murder conspiracies of 2025. On August 26, 2020, while Kelly was being held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Chicago waiting for trial, he experienced firsthand why child offenders are among the most endangered inmates in the American prison system. The assault went down around 9:45 a.m. when fellow inmate Jeremiah Shane Farmer slipped away from a prison employee during a moment of distraction. Farmer, a convicted member of the Latin King street gang with distinctive face tattoos including teardrops symbolizing bodies he dropped, had a horrific criminal history. He was connected to the 1999 murders of two businessmen, Marion Lowry, 74, and Harvey Seegers, 67, who were beaten to death with a hammer. The attack itself was brutal and calculated. Farmer entered Kelly's cell while Kelly was sleeping on the lower bunk, climbed on top of him, and repeatedly punched him in the head and body. The violence only stopped when a prison officer intervened by ordering Farmer to stop. When he refused, the officer deployed pepper spray to halt the attack. Kelly got cuts, bruises, and injuries to his head, but avoided hospitalization. However, the psychological impact was severe. The incident left him petrified and paranoid, fearing retaliation from Farmer's associates. Following the assault, Kelly was placed in solitary confinement for his protection, and Farmer got transferred to another facility. What makes this attack particularly revealing are the claims Farmer made afterward. In a 4-page handwritten motion filed shortly after the incident titled "The Government Made Me Attack R. Kelly," Farmer alleged that he was forced by the government to assault Kelly. His claims were rooted in frustrations that were made worse by COVID-19 lockdowns that prevented access to legal aid and the jail library. Farmer described an argument with an MCC mental health professional who supposedly dared him to attack Kelly, saying, "Go do it then," after which staff allegedly followed him and allowed the assault before stepping in. The motivation behind Farmer's attack was complex. Frustration over repeated lockdowns at MCC, triggered by pro-Kelly protests outside the facility, combined with his disgust at Kelly's crimes. Farmer's handwritten complaint called Kelly a file and referenced his disgusting crimes, suggesting the charges fueled his rage. This aligns perfectly with the prison code, where offenders become scapegoats for disruptions and convenient targets for inmates looking to vent their frustrations while simultaneously boosting their status among fellow prisoners. The informal prison code views child molesters and files as ranking at the absolute bottom, often below murderers, drug dealers, or violent offenders. This isn't just prison folklore, it's a documented phenomenon that has real, often deadly consequences. A 2017 study noted that inmates often rationalize violence against offenders as justice or protection of society, with up to 40% of assaults on offenders being motivated by this vigilante mindset. The reasoning behind this targeting runs deeper than simple moral outrage. Many inmates have kids or were victims of childhood abuse themselves, viewing child crimes as predatory and unforgivable attacks on the vulnerable. When an inmate successfully attacks a child molester, it doesn't just satisfy their sense of justice, it elevates their status within the prison community. Reddit discussions and former inmate accounts describe child molesters as fair game, with violence boosting the attacker's reputation. This code creates a high-risk environment for offenders like Kelly, whose crimes involve multiple underage victims. The system is so entrenched that sex offenders are frequently isolated, harassed, extorted, or assaulted. Prisons may place them in protective custody units to avoid violence, but even there, they face stigma. In general population, they must check in, request protective custody, or risk beatings, stabbings, or killings that are sometimes orchestrated by gangs. Robert Sylvester Kelly's situation is particularly dangerous due to the nature and scope of his crimes. Prosecutors labeled him a prolific child molester, and his convictions involved multiple underage victims, some as young as 13, 14, including his illegal marriage to the late Aaliyah when she was just 15 years old. But Kelly's celebrity status adds another layer of complexity to his prison experience. While fame might seem like it would offer some protection, it actually amplifies the risks he faces. His high-profile cases have disrupted prison operations, leading to lockdowns and increased security measures that other inmates blame on his presence. This resentment, combined with the nature of his crimes, creates a perfect storm of danger. The 2020 attack wasn't an isolated incident, but rather part of a documented pattern of violence against offenders in federal facilities. Prison gangs like the Aryan Brotherhood, Latin Kings, and Bloods enforce the anti-child molester code differently, sometimes using it to justify attacks that boost the attacker's status within the criminal hierarchy. The irony is particularly stark when examining the Aryan Brotherhood's involvement in the later allegations against Kelly. While this white supremacist gang positions itself as protectors of children to justify violence, the reality is far more complex and hypocritical. Several AB members have themselves faced charges for child rape or solicitation, including one recent case where an AB member was sentenced to 60 years for repeated sexual assault of a 14-year-old girl. Another case involved a former Aryan Nations leader getting 50 years for child rape, and yet another AB member was sentenced for soliciting a minor for sex. This pattern reveals that the protection of children narrative used by these gangs is often a convenient justification for violence rather than a genuine moral stance. The hypocrisy becomes even more apparent when we consider how McKeel Glenn Stein, the very AB member who allegedly refused to kill Kelly in 2025, had his own history of violence and criminal behavior spanning decades.
Just dealing with the facts of where we at now. He's in there for a crime against a woman. A lot of times, crimes against kids, crimes against women, they'll you up.
That's a fact.
That's facts.
That is true.
Kelly's family members have maintained his innocence throughout the legal proceedings and continue to do so in light of these prison threats. His uncle, Gregory Preston, spoke to media outlets following one of Kelly's sentencings, expressing unwavering support for his nephew despite the overwhelming evidence presented in court.
Because, like I said, he's innocent. I mean, they lied. People lied on him. So that's as far as I'm trying to take it. You know, I mean, it's so obvious.
And because of the fact that we have been around some of the people at the same time, where they say that they were afraid or they were being charges that they felt, and no fooding, no eating, that is not true.
Even Kelly's estranged brother Bruce, who had been beefing with the singer legally, expressed conflicted feelings about the situation when interviewed during his own legal trouble.
This hurt my soul. I don't believe that these charges are true. I mean, I don't believe these women are being truthful. I don't.
The psychological warfare built into the prison system can't be understated. For inmates like Kelly, every day brings the possibility of violence, and every interaction with fellow prisoners carries the potential for deadly consequences. The stress of this environment, combined with the social isolation that comes with protective custody, creates a psychological pressure cooker that can break even the strongest individuals. As of today, R. Kelly remains locked up at FCI Butner, with no major updates reported since the dramatic events of June 2025. The silence itself is telling. Either the allegations got successfully buried, as his legal team predicted, or they were indeed the fabrications that prosecutors claimed them to be. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.